So we were just talking about the idea that the bride and the groom morph into gods and goddesses. We've talked earlier about the idea of coming face to face with a god. So at the wedding, we also have an audience. So what's happening for the audience then as they see this happening?
And I'm so glad you used the word audience, because you're setting me up for a diatribe.
Let's hear it.
And that is that for us, when we go to a wedding, we're the audience, and then there are the officiants, and then there are the people who get married to each other. In this kind of situation, the ritual does not make distinctions between those who are on the stage, so to speak, and then us, the audience. We're all part of it. We're all a group. And obviously, they're much more important parts of the group and less important parts of the group. But even we, who are the people attending, let's put it that way, we're part of the group. And there's been so much research and speculation done on what the situation is here. And I think people get a little bit too bogged down in what a real wedding would be like, rather than worrying instead about what the feelings are that are experienced at a real wedding. And that can still be studied objectively. And certainly the great Russian folklorist Vladimir Propp studied the feelings of people who are participating in a wedding at, let's say, a small Russian rural community. He could study that empirically. You could do psychological interviews about what's going on in people's minds and hearts. Going back to your question, now that I've finished my diatribe, if we think of this as a group, and you see the bridegroom, and then that's the he. You see the bride, that's the you. And then who's the I? Well, that's the subjectivity of everybody who's at the wedding. And sure, you can say it's Sappho, but that's pseudo-historical. The beautiful songs attributed to Sappho are a capturing of these amazingly joyous moments, these sensual moments at the climactic moment when the bridegroom marries the bride and vice versa. And that moment, that sacred moment, is something that is so vicariously appealing that everybody is pulled into it. And here, the speaking I, which is the subjective voice that is telling about her experiences, is speaking really for the whole group. But you can also say that she's speaking for the bride and the groom. So if you're really pulled into this, that means that, hey, if the bride is Aphrodite, if the bridegroom is Arēs, and if the synapses are firing, and if combustion is happening, then I am pulled into this, and therefore I become part of that, and therefore I become, let's say, Aphrodite, and I become Arēs, or the fusion of Arēs and Aphrodite, and then I am aesthetically and erotically connected, totally connected to the experience, and at that point, I feel like dying. Now, why dying? Well, think of the fact that Arēs is the god of violent death in battle, and yet he's the most attractive bridegroom you can imagine, and by the way, a great dancer and singer, as we know from Odyssey 8, that second song of Demodocus. So after all these symptoms of what I've described in Unguarded Moments as an erotic meltdown, the female speaker finally says, "And a little short of death do I appear to myself." I'm at that edge where am I Aphrodite? When I look into a mirror, is Aphrodite looking back? That is fatal attraction. Because we see that in battle scenes. What happens when Patroclus is face to face with the god of war, or Patroclus is face to face with his personal antagonist, Apollo? It is the most exhilarating moment of his life, but it's also the moment that he will die.
Right.
So the climax of ritual is a death, and you do die to your old self, because you'll never be the same again. You're now into a new experiential world, and when this is all over, you're dead to your old self, and you're reborn to a new self. And that is, of course, exhilarating, but at the actual moment, it does feel like dying, but it's a great feeling.